So welcome to the Minnesota FLL Coaches Training for the 2020-2021 replay season. My name is Vicki Cody, and I'm going to start us off tonight. So first, I wanted to let you all know that we are recording this session. We're going to post it later along with the whole Q&A and everything. So later on tonight, Jeannie Badger will take us through the robot game, all the rules, mission by mission, just like she does every year. So behind the scenes tonight, we have Norm Tiedemann helping with our technical issues, and Cheryl Moeller is manning our Q&A. So speaking of questions, we ask that you please use the Q&A feature to ask the questions. Cheryl will make sure everybody's question gets answered tonight. So I'd like to start with a quick poll, just to see, I usually ask this when we're in person, but I'd like to see who we have with us tonight. Can you please let us know if you're a rookie or a veteran coach? The poll. And I'll let you guys take a second to answer that. So we have been working really hard this season. It was sort of like recreating the wheel. So we apologize that our coaches trainings are a little late this season, but we're hoping to have a great season for you. All right. And so we'll come back to that poll in just a second. So I want to start with a really big thank you to all you coaches out there. We all know this year has been challenging, just to say the least. So I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge all the work you guys are doing as coaches, let you know that we appreciate your efforts and we know that they are Herculean this year. So, and we will do everything we can to help you along the way as you and your team, navigate this journey. All right. So do we have those poll results, Norm? We do. All right. And it looks like, wow, 11 to 21 rookies versus veterans. So I'm really excited that we have so many rookie coaches out there. And hopefully our veterans will be able to pipe up in the Q&A too, because I'm sure they have a lot of knowledge out there. So thank you for participating in that poll. And we're going to do another quick one here in a second. So speaking of making things easier for you this year, we are trying some new things this year. So we put together a series of coaches training videos. We're also doing coach calls, but the coaches training videos are little video snippets that are supposed to make finding information easier for you. So what I'd like, this is just for my own information, what I'd like to know is, so we put these videos up last week, and I just want to know, I take a quick poll to find out if anyone out there actually was able to watch those videos, or maybe you didn't even know they were there. And I know we put them out late last week. So if you were able to watch them, that would be great. So while you're answering that poll, so the video snippets, like I said, they were supposed to be short, little 5 to 7 minute videos focused on one or two things. Hopefully, as you go through the season and maybe you want to go back and ask, think you have a question that I maybe answered in this, instead of watching a 2-hour coaches meeting, you can go back to these little snippets. And so just so you know too, because we put all that information out there, I'm going to be hitting the highlights of what these videos are, but I'm not really going to do a deep dive into them because the information is all out there. So the other thing that we're really excited about this year is coach calls. Well, they're not going to be like calls on the telephone, but they will be video calls. In the past, we've noticed after our coaches meetings, about a month later, we would get a flurry of emails from coaches just asking, random questions. And so we thought these coach calls might be helpful. So after you've met with your team a while, we could get together again. And as a group, if you have questions, we would answer those. So right now we have 2 of them scheduled. One is October 19th and one is November 5th. And by the way, if you saw these calls on our email, on our website earlier, you'll know that the November date has changed. Initially, when we were scheduling all of our schedules months ago, we inadvertently scheduled our November 1 on election day. So one of our coaches caught it. So thank you very much, Jenna, for catching that and emailing us. So we moved it to Thursday, November 5th. So these calls are each going to have a topic, but we really, like I said, expect them to be very free form. So even if you have questions that are off topic, we're really okay with that. Just come with your questions. So do you have the answers to that poll? Wow. I'm really surprised so many people watch them, and I hope that they were helpful for you. If you have comments about those videos, feel free to email me because I would love your feedback on them. It's the first time we've ever done those. And for those of you who didn't know that they were there, they are under coaches training as well as under the team resources. So I encourage you to go out and check those out. All right, so I'm going to hit some of the highlights of those videos, like I said. So the first thing is our tournament structure. So many of you may know that we have a lot fewer teams registering this year. So we did not feel the need to have that sectional level of play. So we had regional, sectional, state. So we're taking out that middle level for sectionals. And also, I'm sure you all know now, all of our events will be held remotely. So teams will register for an event. Registration will open October 14th, and all of our events are finalized and posted online. So we have 5 events this year, none in November, so it's December and January. Teams will participate in those regional events. They will advance directly to state. And for anyone who's keeping track, our state championship, we have pushed it back a week to to February 27th. And because our events are remote, our regional fees have been reduced to $75. And we will have a new fee for our state championship, but that fee is yet to be determined. So stay tuned. All right, so we have some other new things happening. So for you returning coaches, you might be very excited about this. I know I'm excited about it. So our demographic survey is now an online SurveyMonkey form. So for you new coaches, the High Tech Kids demographic survey is required, 1 per team. And we're gonna make it due on the Monday preceding your event. But if you wanna submit your form early, by all means do. It'll certainly make it easier for us and we won't have to track you down, but it will be due that Monday before. You know, a lot of people ask why we ask for these demographics, and simply I wanna say, this is what our sponsors are asking for. They wanna know who they are helping. And without their support, our event fees would be well over $400 per team. So filling out this form helps to keep our event fees low. Also this year, there's an extra question at the bottom of the form, and it is a shipping address question. So this is how we are gathering the address you want me to send your medals and your rubrics and your awards to. So this year, all teams, as always, all the participants will get a medal for participating. You'll be getting all your rubrics back, and we'll be shipping all this back to you. So this is just a way for us to get the correct shipping address and also know how many medals to send you. So the other thing that we will need from you is your consent and release forms for your participants and or your team roster. So in the past, sometimes we've done a combination of the team roster, paper forms, all paper forms, only team roster, and we are still very willing to take the information that way. First is doing a big push to have all this consent and release done online. So the way you would do that is from your first dashboard. You can invite students, and I think you're really inviting the parents because the students are too young, to the team, and then the parent electronically signs a consent form, then that student is populated on your team roster. If for whatever reason you can't get a parent to fill it out, they don't want to fill it out online, maybe you have an FLL student who is just barely under the age range, we're okay with that too. Just fill out the paper form. We are going to ask you to submit the roster and the paper forms, or combination, or however you've done that, to us. Right now, we set up an email, fll@hightechkids.org, but Jeannie and I are working on a way to submit it onto our website. We just actually haven't had time to get that working yet. So watch it for an email on that one as well. All right. Okay, so the challenge documents. So in the past, well, last year and the year before, I believe, you received, 10 engineering notebooks and other things from FIRST. So this year, they're not sending so much paper out. So what I'm hoping is that all of you have already figured out and found how to access ThinkScape. And if you haven't, so you need to access ThinkScape from your FIRST dashboard. And the button will populate once you pay your $225 registration fee. And it'll give you access to the robot game rulebook, the engineering notebook, and the team meeting guide. I believe this year that FIRST is sending out printed books, but only 2 notebooks and maybe 1 robot game rulebook and 1 team meeting guide. I did want to ask really quickly, do my very last poll. I am wondering how many people out there are already nationally registered. If you haven't already registered, I really encourage you to register now with our event registration opening next week, Wednesday. You have to have a paid registration in order to register with us in Minnesota. And sometimes it takes a day or 2 for that payment to cycle through. So, so if you haven't registered, I just really encourage you to register now. Or if you're thinking about registering a second team, or you have a friend who you know who needs to register, just to get that done. All right. All right, let's talk about the challenge this year. Okay, it's called Replay. And just so you know, there were some major changes to the actual judging process, as well as all the rubrics got a facelift this season. And these were all plans that were pre-COVID. So these were going to happen pandemic or no pandemic. So the rubrics and the judging processes are permanent. Anything associated that I'm going to tell you later on with the remote events, hopefully that changes in 2021. So how about those results from the poll, Norm? Is everybody registered? Let's go for, wow, that's awesome. So those of you who haven't registered yet, I really encourage you to get out there and register. All right, so the biggest change this year, we're going to start with core values. So this is probably the biggest judging change. So core values will still be evaluated. However, there's not going to be a separate judging session for core values, the session with the activity. FIRST has decided to integrate core values into the entire judging, into all your judging sessions. It's interwoven in the rubrics, as well as this new core values rubric is, it looks pretty sparse, but that's because it's really interwoven in the other rubrics. And actually, before I go too far, all of these rubrics can be found on the High Tech Kids website under FLL Team Resources, and you go to this year's challenge, and all the rubrics are there. You can download them. Make sure you share them with your team. So for those of you who are new to FIRST and FIRST League League Challenge, the FIRST core values are a set of principles and guidelines for teams, how they work together and how they work with their communities. So I've listed the 6 core values, and you'll notice, you probably can't see the rubric, but they are also called out specifically on the rubric: discovery, innovation, impact, inclusion, teamwork, and fun. So I would take a look at the rubric. At the very top of the rubric, they list some new awards that I'll talk about later. But so the core values, big thing is no activity, no separate judging session this year. All right, next, robot design and programming. So for those of you new to First LEGO League and new to us high-tech kids, in Minnesota, so we were part of the pilot FLL year back in 1998. So we've been doing this for a long time, and from the beginning, they have called this the Robot Design and Programming Session. In this session, we will have a design judge and a programming judge, and we just feel that without programming, well, the robot would just be a really cool paperweight because it wouldn't move. So we feel programming is really important, so we like to call it out. So first, I'd like to talk about the robot design part. So this judging session is about the process, the journey that your robot has taken. The judges want to know, what did you try? What were your improvements? What were your failures? We have judges who love to hear about the failures and how you overcame those failures. You know, talk about your mission strategy and how that affected your robot's journey. You will not be running your actual robot. You won't be showing your missions, but you should be prepared, and I'm going to show you something. You should be prepared to show your robot and your attachments. So here's my robot, and as you can tell, my camera's kind of far away. You might want to come up with a strategy with your team on how you're really going to zoom in and show this in judging. It might be kind of tricky, so I really suggest practicing that part. And then for programming, so in the past, when we've been live, the whole team is there, and at some point in time, the programming judge would say, hey, who wants to show us our programs? We're gonna go over here. So with remote events, we're not gonna be doing that. So the second half of this little judging session will be dedicated to programming. So to prepare for that, someone on your team needs to be prepared with the software's already booted up, they're on his or her screen, and that team member is ready to share the screen and sort of walk the team through and the judges through the programs. And in this judging session, very similar. It's very much about the process. It's about your process. It's about your coding iterations. You know, talk about my blocks, loops, comments. These are all things that judges are always looking for. Perhaps show your strategy or talk about your strategy by explaining how your code, maybe it uses landmarks like a border wall to make your robot reliable. And in the past, returning coaches will know this, in the past we have had a Minnesota specific programming rubric. These new rubrics that came out do a really good job integrating programming into each line. So this year, each judge, the programming judge and the robot design judge, will fill out this particular rubric. One of them we will have entitled programming, so you'll know that that's the rubric the programming judge filled out. So they're going to fill these out with their specialty in mind. So you will still get 2 rubrics back. But as you're looking through these with your teams, it is the same rubric. It'll just have a different title on the top. All right. All right, on to the innovation project. So we all know, and we hear it all the time, that this program is more than robots. So the project part of First LEGO League Challenge is what I think sets it apart from other STEM programs. I can almost guarantee you that none of your kids joined your team to do a research project. However, I would bet that some of them, after this is over, this becomes one of their favorite parts of FLL. This is what happened to me on my team. None of them joined to do a research project, but some of them every year looked forward to it. So as you dive into this, also remember another new rubric with all new, criteria. So make sure you're looking at that. All right, so this year, it is all about getting up and being active. So I would suggest watching the challenge video with your team. And if you get a little stuck, or maybe even in the beginning, referring to those project sparks that are in the engineering notebook. This is the engineering notebook. So the question this year, it's on page 8 of the engineering notebook, and I'm just going to read the challenge to you exactly how they have it written. So identify a specific problem linked to people not being active enough. Research the problem. Design a new piece of technology or improve an existing one. Share your solution, collect feedback, and iterate. And then prepare a 5-minute presentation that you're going to give at your event. All right, so we break this down a little bit. This is one of the first times that they've actually been so specific about the solution, which is design a new piece of technology or improve upon an existing one. The other thing that you should note is that within the rubric, it actually says you need to either make a model, a prototype, or a drawing of some sort of your solution, and make sure that you're able to share that with the judges. Again, just like your robot, it might be kind of hard, so practice that. So the problem, identify specific problem linked to people not being active enough. And I think the first thing everybody thinks about is health. You're not healthy. But I think if you dig a little further, you can see there's other things. I just listed a few: pollution, financial, community problems, maybe learning problems. Make sure you're talking to an expert. You want to share with an expert. And another thing that is big on these rubrics is iterations. So they want you to identify the problem, come up with a solution, share it with an expert, get feedback, and then probably you'll learn something from that expert, and then you have to change your solution a little bit. That type of iteration. And if that is what is happening, if that happens with your team, make sure you're talking about that with the judges. All right. I was going to pause for a minute. Cheryl, are there any questions? Nope, we're good so far. All right, I'm going to keep plowing through. All right, I do want to talk about the new judging process with remote events. I have a whole little 5-minute snippet, so I'm not going to go into a deep dive on this, but everything is remote, so I want to make sure, and we have a new judging process, so I want to make sure people understand. So the new process is a single 35-minute time block that your team is going to have for judging. First is going to push out some information. It's a single 30-minute time block. They're going to do everything. We're going to do it just a little bit different. So you're still going to receive one time, but it's going to be broken into 2 15-minute sessions with a 5-minute, little transition period between them. So it'll be a 35-minute time block. In the video snippet, I said arrive 5 minutes early, but in talking here in the office, we realized that if teams want to, they can arrive as early as 15 minutes, because we're going to have a kind of private waiting room. And so if you wanted to practice and make sure everybody could hear each other and practice sharing your screens right before you go into judging, just like you would. Well, you wouldn't practice sharing screens outside a judging room live, but you're doing your little practice. A coach wants to do a pep talk. So we will have a little private room for you 15 minutes before your judging session. So that is an option for you. So we are going to be using Discord as our conferencing platform. And because we're going to be online, and in the interest of youth protection, we are only allowing the team members and the coaches into judging. When people log on to these platforms, they have a name, and there's no way we can know if the person named Uncle Joey is really somebody's Uncle Joey. And we just want to make sure we're keeping everybody safe, so as safe as we can. We hope that you understand. All right, and so this year, because of our remote platform, we will also be allowing recorded presentations. We understand that some teams may not physically be together on that Saturday, especially school teams. So while we are always happy to have live presentations, you know, Brady Bunch style, the choice is yours. If you choose to do a recording, please be prepared to show it during your judging session. First is putting together a remote judging hub. They're going to ask you to upload these videos up to the hub. And you can do that, and that's fine. But in talking about it logistically here, their intent was for judges to watch the videos earlier in the week and then do Q&A with the kids, but we just don't think people will remember, you know, each team. So we want to do it live, just like we would at a live event. You'll all watch the video together, and then the judges will do Q&A. So it'll be mimicking more of a live event. You just have to be prepared to have your video, to screen share your video with the judges in your session. Also something I suggest practicing. All right, so in a couple minutes, Jeannie is going to go over the robot game in detail. But I just wanted to start off with some basic tips. So basic tips. Make sure your mystery models are built correctly. I know it sounds obvious, but every year we come to events and kids show up at the table and they say, you know, my bridge doesn't look like that. Well, it happens, especially if you have kids building your models. Just check them, make sure they're working correctly. And if you're not sure, feel free to shoot us an email and we can talk you through it. Make sure that you have read the robot game rule book. And in this book, you'll find the general rules of the game, the mission rules, directions on how to set up and orient your mission models. Also, you'll want to make sure that you're checking the official game updates. Now, I don't think there are very many out there right now, but know where they are. We have them linked from our team resources page. They're also on the first site. So this year, because everyone's going to be, you know, at home or in school, I think it's really important for teams to have some sort of table or structure that they are running their robot on. In our resources page, we do have a section on practice tables. We have DIY versions, and you can make something, but there are two manufactured options there. One is from, I think, Geyer, and one is from Andy Mark. But just so you know, we haven't seen in person either one of those tables, and we don't recommend one over the other. You know, you can just go out there, and if that's what you choose to get, I would just read the reviews on those tables. So, all right, so just like judging, all your robot rounds are going to be remote. And again, we're doing this a little bit different than what FIRST has suggested. So the details of this, again, I have one of those 7-minute little video snippets that goes into just grave detail on what we're doing here. But just so you know, what we're doing here is going to be a little bit different than what FIRST suggests. So instead of just uploading a video of your team running their robot, we wanted our teams to still have the interactions with our referees, as well as a little bit more time to fix some problems. So what we decided to do is have practice rounds early. And that way, if you have misinterpreted a rule or if you've built something incorrectly, you're going to have a couple of weeks to get together and fix it. So your practice rounds are going to be about 3 or 4 weeks before your event. So December events will have their practice rounds mid-November, January events mid-December. And then your 3 official scored rounds will be in that week preceding your event. So we'll have times for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We're trying to hit the days of the week that most teams would be meeting anyway. So there are going to be a separate round of signups for those sessions after everyone registers for their event. And we are shooting for the first week of November for that. So make sure you watch your inbox and information coming from us on that, that first week in November. So, all right. So since, like I said before, everybody's going to have a home field advantage. No robots are going to be like getting in the car and going through the snow and traveling to an event this year. So they're all going to be perfect, right? Yes. Okay. So when you are doing an official run or a practice round, we want to make sure that everyone's playing field, the playing fields are as even as possible. So when you're doing your run, you need to set up all your missions, or the models, even if it's models at the far end of the table that you're not using, they all need to be set up, and you need to make sure you have some sort of border wall around the perimeter. So if your flat surface is a hard floor that you're on, which is perfectly fine, you still need to somehow put some border walls up especially so that our referees can look and they can delineate that space and make sure that your robot is within that 4x8 space. The other things we're asking from teams is to have a 12-inch ruler or measuring device on hand, just so they can show the referees, yes, we are under 12 inches. So especially those teams that are pushing that limit, make sure you have a ruler.
We have a question.
Oh, hold on a second.
We have a question. So someone asked whether they should be uploading the video the robot runs, and question about scoring live. They just didn't understand that. So could you repeat that again?
Yeah, okay, so you won't need to upload any video runs. We're gonna do everything live with referees. And what was the other, about scoring live?
Yeah, it's really whether it's live judging or
uploading. So. Yeah, so nope. So you won't really need to upload anything to the first hub. I think it's a little bit safer, actually, because you're just going to be sharing your screen with us. So if you have done a recorded presentation, then you're just going to share your screen. So you're going to be the owner of that video, and you just share your screen with the judges. And the robot runs are all going to be on our Discord platform. So it's going to be like a Zoom meeting, sort of like this. And the referees are going to be there, and you'll be able to see them, and they'll be able to see your table, and you guys can chat. And the idea is, especially for the practice rounds, is the referees are giving you tips. They're telling you about camera angles, and I can tell you about that because we were practicing today trying to get camera angles on our table, and it's a little bit challenging, making sure you have enough light so people can see, that you can access the platform, all of that. So, but we are asking teams to have, like I said, a 12-inch ruler on hand to show the referees that, you know, you're under the 12 inches. We're also asking, because we went back and forth on this, and we feel like the timer should be in the room with the kids, so the kids can have access to seeing that timer. So we're asking for the teams to appoint someone, and it can be a parent or someone else in the room, as the timekeeper. And that person, you know, they're like a secret MC at heart. You know, they can have fun with that. You know, they can call the game. They can count it down the way Charles does here, 3, 2, 1, Lego. It could be a fun way to, you know, charge up the energy a little bit in your classroom or your basement or wherever it is that you're meeting. So, are there any more questions, Cheryl? Okay, we're good.
Someone was asking about that it might be tricky to show how your robot is moving and accomplishing the missions, and that's why we're doing the practice run.
Yes, yes, and that is why we're doing the practice run, because we know it's going to be tricky, and we want to make sure that we are, you know, giving the teams the benefit of the doubt, and we want to make sure that we can see what they're doing. So, so yes, it's a new frontier for all of us. So, so we appreciate your patience, and it's going to be interesting. So also this year there were, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5 new awards that that FIRST has introduced. These are free-form awards, similar to things that we used to give judges awards for. So just like judges awards, what I used to say about judges awards, if you just simply share your story and journey with the judges during your Q&A, that is where these awards come from. So. All right, so advancement. So since we don't have sectionals, you're advancing straight from regionals to the state championship, sort of like we did in the old days. I shouldn't say that because that was during my day. But anyway, so I just want to reiterate that that advancement is, like I said, the program is more than robots. So each section is weighted equally. So your robot score is 25%. Your core values is 25%, 25% for project, and 25% for robot design and programming. So teams that advance are clearly going to be well-rounded. They may not be the team with the highest robot score. And to be eligible for advancement, teams must participate in all aspects, the judging and the robot performance. And this year, advancing teams will get an email from me. So if you advance in December, I'm going to be sending out information in January about what your next steps are. And the January teams, I'll probably try to send that information out as you advance. All right, so we are foregoing opening ceremonies this year because I imagine if your judging isn't until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you don't want to get up early at 9 o'clock to watch our opening ceremonies. So we are foregoing opening ceremonies. However, the award ceremony is going to be streamed on our brand new High Tech Kids Twitch TV channel. Woo. So honestly, I would love to tell you that we have come up with an exact time that awards are going to happen, but to be super honest with you, we are still working out the details on how long it's going to take the judges to determine award winners, because our deliberation process, being remote, is going to be challenging. It's just going to be challenging. So your team will still receive the rubrics back, and like I said before, each participant is still going to get a medal. We are hoping to mail out all that stuff, including awards, Monday and Tuesday, to that address that you have submitted on the demographic survey. Yeah, Cheryl has another question.
Okay, so one good question was a recommendation on cameras. Anybody?
Oh, we got new cameras here. What are they? We got little Canon handheld. Are they?
Canon camcorder.
It's just a Canon camcorder.
But
And it
Cell phone.
zooms pretty well, and you'll see that later.
you can use a cell phone. though,
But
not actually.
yep.
You can use a cell phone or a camcorder.
Yep.
Or a webcam.
Yep, you can use a, yes. And you might be able to use, yeah, a webcam might work just fine, or your cell phone. Cell phones actually have really good cameras in them. So yeah, I would give it a try before
Someone
you buy
also
something.
asked, is there a limit on the number of camera angles to share that they have? You know, because sometimes you need multiple
Wow.
angles.
No, if you have cameras, give us those angles.
What we are going to ask is after your robot run, before you reset anything, that you will walk and kind of show the referees each mission model that
Right.
scored, so that they can see the actual, what the
Right.
finished point is. Remember, it's
And-
scored at the end of the game.
And actually, to pigtail into what Jeannie's saying is the referees are going to be doing the scoring. And I think what we talked about here is they're going to score it. It's going to go into the system. It's going to spit out a number, and it's going to say, 300. And most teams know kind of what they can score. And so before you reset the table, you're going to see that 300, and maybe your kids will say, no way, we got 792. And so you can kind of go through the ref will be like, well, this and this and this. And so to make sure that there were no, mistakes on either end. So we're going to have you guys leave the table until the scores come back.
Okay, and someone also shared a nice website on the chat for online-stopwatch.com if you're looking for a timer for
Oh,
a
okay.
device. So I'm
That's
sure there's other
awesome.
ones online, but they found that one to be helpful. And someone also asked when the dates will be finalized for the tournaments.
So the dates are now finalized. So we have three dates in December. Hold on, I'm looking at the calendar, and 3 dates in January, I believe. Is that what you guys see over there?
2 in December.
No, 2 in December. 2 in December. and 3 in January.
But we do have a little caveat that we are basing this a little bit on the projected number of teams. And so we still expect some more teams to register. And if teams don't, then we might have to cut back, but
Right.
this is what we think we're going to end up with.
Right. Even the very first event, I believe it's December 5th or 6th, says tentative. And right now we're thinking we will still be having that event.
Shameless plug here.
Oh,
It also depends on number of volunteers.
that's
So
very true.
we are always looking for volunteers.
And another question was how long will each event last?
So the events right now, it's going to depend a little bit on how many teams are at each event, how the registration works out. I'll be super honest with you guys. In the past, we had 640, give or take, teams. Today, we sit at 155. So that's why it's been kind of challenging to figure out our schedule. So right now, we believe they're going to start around 9, and the judging will end around, was it 3 o'clock, Jeannie? 2:30? Around 2:30, 3 o'clock. So but you're only going to have a half an hour of that. And then my hope is to have the award ceremony sometime before dinner. Don't hold me to that.
And then we have another question. I think 2 people asked if all of a sudden a team can't meet in person any longer because of COVID restrictions, how does that affect their team? Someone pointed out that their scores might not be as high because they aren't able to work on it together. I will give my 2 cents on this
Okay,
one, that
go
it's
for it.
not necessarily, this is all about the process of learning, not necessarily who's the best at who accomplished the most. And you'll see that sometimes in teams advance aren't the ones that have the highest score on the table. So that how you continue to learn, even if you can't meet in person, might be the challenge this year. And that's for
Right.
all of us, adults included. So, but you can add to that, Vicki.
And I think actually there are teams meeting now who aren't meeting in person together. Somehow they're figuring out how to do a Zoom meeting and maybe, share ideas through Google Docs or other online sharing platforms for programming and other things. First, also, if you look, I always get lost on the first site, but if you look under this year's challenge, and it's the resources for this year's challenge, they do have a wireframe of the mat, and it has squares on it. And I don't remember how big they say those squares are, but it is a wireframe, and I think you can blow it up. And I think if you wanted to share programming, if you want multiple kids to program, but yet they're in different places, I think you can use that wireframe because they can measure distances that way on the wireframe.
I have 2 more questions. Will the award ceremony be posted on the website after the event in addition to streaming?
Absolutely.
But it's not going to be immediate. Don't expect it to be there half an
No,
hour, right? It has
no,
to be
because it
downloaded
takes
and
forever
rendered and-
for it to download and process. We learned that after the FTC kickoff. So, but we will have it posted, and we will try to post as fast as we can. But sometimes it just is going to take time for that processing.
And we have another question on, you mentioned something about advancing teams. Are there a certain amount of teams that advance from each tournament date? Do you know how many will advance to the state tournament?
Yes and no. So yes, there will be a certain amount of teams. So we haven't actually set how many teams are going to state yet, because we are thinking that before registration next week, we're going to get more teams registering nationally, and it's going to be a percentage. So we would like to keep it around that, 25% or so, but we just have to figure out how it's going to work mathematically with the 5 events. So we've always tried to do around 25%, and we're hoping that we can keep it at that level this year. Any more questions? All right. So anyone who's a returning coach knows that this is my very favorite picture for robot game. So this is a team up in Duluth a very, very long time ago watching the robot. Clearly, it is not going well. All right, so we are going to move on to the robot game now. So if you have your robot game rulebook handy, I would grab it now so you can follow along with Jeannie. Otherwise, just stay tuned.